life is like a journey, and this journey has lots of different stages. But for the purposes tonight, we're just going to take this journey and we're going to break it down into three very specific stages. So basically, you have the early stages of life, and here's what it's basically like when you're in the early stages. You have a lot of energy, and you've probably got a lot of time on your hands, but you've got absolutely no money. When you get to the middle stages of life, the kind of the best years of your life, you've got a little bit of money now. You probably still got a lot of energy, but you have absolutely no time. And then you get a little bit older in life. Now you're starting to get towards those golden years of life where you have a little bit of money and you have a little bit of time. Maybe you have a lot of time. But now you've got no energy to do anything with. And tonight, what you just heard from Michael is we're going to look at life. We're going to look at the stages of life. We're going to look at what does it look like to follow Jesus, to serve Jesus faithfully during these stages of life. So we're now at the second to the last sermon in this 21-week sermon series on Ecclesiastes. You really need to be back here next Wednesday night when we wrap up this entire book. This really, next Wednesday night, is not just the culmination of the whole book. In my opinion, it's the most important passage in the entire book, and to raise the stakes a little bit, we're throwing a big party after this service is over with next Wednesday night. So be back and invite everybody that you know. So today, if you've got a Bible tonight, flip it open. If you've got a paper Bible, to Ecclesiastes chapter 12. If you've got that Calvary Ministries mobile app open, you'll see on the button that says today's sermon. We're going to be looking at the first 7 verses from Ecclesiastes chapter 12. And the first thing we're going to examine tonight is, how do you honor Jesus with the early years of your life? Again, this is the stage where you still have a little bit of stuff to figure out. You've got some time, you've got a lot of energy, but you've got no money. And I tell people all of the time, there's 2 ways that you can figure out some of the hard lessons in life. You can make your own mistakes and learn from those mistakes, or a better way to learn from it is to get a mentor, somebody who's already kind of gone through those difficult parts of life and who's been knocked around a little bit, and you can learn from their examples so that you don't have to go through all of those hard times yourself. So Ecclesiastes chapter 12, starting in verse 1, look at what it looks like to honor Jesus with the early years. Don't let the excitement of youth cause you to forget your Creator. Honor Him in your youth before you grow old and say, life is not pleasant anymore. Remember Him before the light of the sun, the moon, and the stars is dim in your old eyes, and rain clouds continually darken the sky. Remember Him before your legs, the guards of your house, start to tremble, and before your shoulders, the strong men stoop. Remember Him before your teeth, your few remaining servants stop grinding, and before your eyes, the women looking through the windows see dimly. Solomon is going to challenge us for every stage of life, but he's talking specifically to people that are still young, and I think Solomon is communicating to them, you have some decisions to make, and the decisions that you make will carry consequences with you for the rest of your life. Some people at a young age tend to ignore Jesus. They have this impression like, hey, I'll take care of Jesus and all of that God stuff much later on in life because I've got many more years to deal with it. So right now, I just want to have fun. And later on, I'll get serious about my faith in God. Or later on, I'll get serious about eternity when there's no guarantees that you'll get serious about it at all. But more importantly, some of the consequences for the bad decisions that you make will carry with you forever. For example, marry the wrong woman, marry the wrong guy, and you will carry the consequences of that for the rest of your life. Get involved in an illicit relationship, get hooked on drugs, make some really poor relationship or business decisions. Those scars could stay with you for the rest of your life. And as a church, one of the reasons why we started this service on Wednesday nights is because we wanted to say we are serious about reaching a population in our city that is largely checking out as soon as they get the opportunity, leaving church completely as soon as they leave home. This 18 to 29-year-old population of not just the Chattahoochee Valley, but America. And if you combine this with people are leaving the church because they don't see any relevance in their life to go to church, and this is the point of your life where you make some decisions and you carry those consequences with you for the rest of your life, And this is an incredibly important time for our church to find ways to reach this part of our city. So Solomon's giving us some description about what it looks like over these stages of life. And tonight he starts with the seasons of the year. Like winter is older years of life, summer is the middle years of life, spring is early years of life. Or actually, he uses some parts of the day, the morning, midday, and evening kind of description tonight. He would give us morning is the beginning of your life, and midday is the middle of your life. And he says you've still got a chance while you're young to use some of the energy that you've got to honor King Jesus with it. But there will come a day when your house, these pillars that your house rests on, are going to get shaky. And they're not going to be as stable anymore. There's going to come a day when these shoulders can't carry the load anymore. And if you wait until then to honor Jesus, you may end up looking back with a lot of regrets. In fact, you may get to the point that you become that grumpy old man or that grumpy old woman who just simply can't find any joy in life because of the consequences of the decisions that you've made. So basically what Solomon is saying is fear God early on and don't go through all of the hard knocks of making bad mistakes at a young age. We want to give you tonight an example of what does it look like to honor God in a few very specific stages of life. And the first person that you're going to hear from in a video, a lady that's involved with an awful lot of stuff around our church, is Amy Brasher. She's at this earlier stage of life. And I want you to listen to Amy's stage of life, but I also want you to hear how does she use the time and energy that she has to honor King Jesus. So y'all listen to this video.
My name is Amy Brasher, and you probably see me a lot around the church. I help out a lot with the youth group. And the things I do on a daily basis, I work at Calvary in the kitchen, and I get to just see the kids every day and, say hey to them, show them some love. And I work with the middle schoolers in the aftercare, just spending time with them, getting to know them, trying to be nice to them, all that fun stuff. I would say in my stage of life where I am, I'm single, I don't have a family that I have to worry about. I get to dedicate a whole lot of time to just ministry, whether it be with kids in the group or kids kind of a one-on-one sort of thing. I can go on a lot of mission trips that someone who had a family wouldn't be able to have time to do that, and just use all of my free time to do whatever I need to do, just having fun and building relationships with kids, trying to mentor them, trying to teach them who God is, put a real idea that God is not just a thought, God is not just something you know, but God is someone who you can have a relationship with. God is someone who you can really dedicate your life to. Just take every opportunity that you can. You have a little bit more freedom just in your day-to-day schedule of not having to be home to take care of a family, not having to, your job might be a little bit more open where you have more free time. Take every opportunity. Go on those short-term mission trips if you can. Go on those long-term mission trips if you can, before you really get locked down into a solid career, if you will. And don't think that church is just in a church building. In whatever job you're doing, do it to honor God. Do it. Take every moment you can to just kind of let people know, you're trying to live your life for Christ wherever you are. Whatever your job may be, showing love to people, showing kindness to people. Showing that you have a higher moral ground, and you don't just have to wait till you're older to have those sort of philosophies. You can have those young. You can start changing the world around you at whatever age you are.
Amy just got back this weekend from a mission trip to Honduras, and she has the time to give to that kind of service to Jesus because she's at this stage of life. Let me tell you something that Pastor Mark Driscoll said about this stage of life when he was studying with his church through the book of Ecclesiastes. He said, get your compass set on north early in life. In other words, get right with Jesus and make him the center of your life early in life, because the farther that you go in life, if your compass is off direction just by the slightest margin, the farther that you go, the more you end up off course. And eventually you're going to get to the point where you're so far off course that you don't even know how you got there and you don't know how to get back. So get serious about Jesus early on at this stage of life. As a church, we're challenging people when they get done with high school before they go to college, or some people when they get done with college but before they go to the workplace. Take a year of your life and give it to serving King Jesus. Spend a gap year in missions overseas, in our community, somewhere else, but give an entire year of your life dedicated to King Jesus before you move on to the next stage of your life. I would love to see every student that's leaving school, high school or college, give a year of their life, if they can, to service to King Jesus. This is a little bit of what it looks like to honor Jesus with your early years. All right, well, let's talk about the best years of your life. This is the time of life where you've got a little bit of time. You've got a little bit of energy, you've got a little bit of money, but you've got absolutely no time to do anything with. And when I use the word best now, this is kind of the biggest chunk of your life, the middle years of your life. Best doesn't mean quality of life here. Best is, this is the time of life where you're getting stuff done. This is the productive period of your life. And I got one verse from Ecclesiastes chapter 12 that Solomon uses to give us some idea of what does it look like to honor Jesus with the best years of your life. He says in verse 4, remember him, remember Jesus, remember your Creator before the door to life's opportunities is closed and the sound of work fades. Now you rise at the first chirping of the birds, but then all their sounds will grow faint. Now, this is definitely a reference to work and to age in verse 4. And there's something kind of fascinating happening. Now, Graham Ogden is a Bible scholar. He pointed this out when I was studying for this passage. You have something quite unusual. If you'll throw verse 4 back up there on the screen for just a second, the best way to translate that verse is the word door is plural, before the doors to life's opportunities are closed. You don't find this anywhere else in the Old Testament. In fact, it's very unusual in Hebrew culture that you would refer to it as doors. Because when Solomon wrote this passage 3,000 years ago, houses in Israel only had one door. There was no back door. You only went in the front door, and you only came out the front door, and it was always a singular door. So nobody really used the phrase doors of opportunity, plural, in Solomon's day. And Graham Ogden says that it is obviously a reference to more than just the door of your house. He said it's probably a reference to both the door of your house and the door of the marketplace. Honor Jesus in your house, but honor Jesus at the workplace too. Turn your marketplace into your mission field. Disciple your family when you get home or when you're with your children, but also spend your time honoring Jesus at work. And he says, look, like the farmer gets up early in the morning before the rooster crows and goes to work in the field, this is the time of your life where you're up at 4 o'clock in the morning because you've got so much work to do, you can't sleep in until 5 o'clock. This is the stage of life where you're just really, really busy. And the problem with this stage of life is it becomes really hard to find time for Jesus in this stage of life. Work is crowding him out, and home life is crowding him out, and responsibilities are crowding him out, and pretty soon you get to the end of the day and you didn't have 2 seconds to yourself, let alone 2 seconds to give to Jesus. And one of the challenges for us tonight is how do you find time to make sure that Jesus is the center of your day when you got no time to yourself, and you have to make it a priority. You have to vigilantly, diligently guard against this. So we're going to show you a video in just a second of probably one of the busiest category of people in our church, perhaps in our country, at this stage of life. It's a stay-at-home mom. Somebody who 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, never gets a break because there's always kids pulling your clothes off to get your attention every single minute of every day. So how do you honor Jesus as a stay-at-home mom, or when you're being pulled in 50 directions and you've got no time for yourself? Well, listen to how Rosie does it. Rosie Osborne will share with you how she tries to honor Jesus during this stage of her life.
I have 3 young children, ages 6, 5, and 2, and I'm a stay-at-home mom, and so I spend a lot of time with the children at home. And so in this phase of my life, I am somewhat limited with my flexibility as far as where I can go. So most of how I serve Jesus right now is centered around the children and my family, or serving my husband and teaching the children. Like if we're out and we see little creatures, we can say, oh, isn't God so creative? Look what he made. Or we'll sing little songs to learn the books of the Bible. So those kinds of things, and just teaching them throughout the day I can do. And I also serve in the church, sometimes in the nursery area, or I'm a part of a Mothers of Preschoolers group. So I'm around other women in that area that I can talk to and minister to sometimes. I also see this phase, because I'm at home so much, it's kind of a building time where, say, while I'm doing dishes or playing with the kids, then I'll have sermons or lectures or debates always on in the background so I can listen and learn and read during that time. So while I'm not always out in the world right now like I was when I was working at TSIS, it's really a building time, and I'm building my knowledge of the Bible and of theology and apologetics and all of that, so that when the next phase comes where I'm out with people a little more, I can use that and hopefully serve more. So right now I focus on the children and building, and we'll see what happens in the next phase.
If you're one of those people that's getting pulled in a million directions during the day, could be a stay-at-home mom, could be somebody who's working and trying to take care of the house, whatever it is, if you're getting pulled in a million directions, we want to encourage you. Our pastors just want to pray for you, because we know how hard it is to make Jesus a center point of your life, even if that's just for 15 minutes a day. So if you've got that mobile app open, click on that little button at the bottom of the page that says Next Steps. Put your name and on that little button there that says, hey, I'm having trouble finding time to honor Jesus at this stage of my life. We want to know who you are. We want to follow up with you. We want to pray for you about it. But our advice to you, my encouragement to you tonight is don't let anything become more important on your schedule than Jesus. And that's going to be a challenge for all of us that are busy in this room. So now you've gone through the early years of life. You've gone through this big chunk of your life where it's time to get stuff done, the best years of your life, and now you're reaping the benefits of it. Now you're at the golden years of life. Well, how do you honor King Jesus during the golden years of your life? Well, don't forget, this is the point of life where maybe you've got a little bit of money, maybe you don't. Definitely, you probably got some time on your hands. But now you've got absolutely no energy. As Solomon described just a few minutes ago, your eyesight's gone, your teeth are gone, your strength is gone. You're just completely got nothing left to give. So what does it look like to honor Jesus during these older golden years of life? Well, listen to how he describes this in verses 5 through 7 of Ecclesiastes 12. Remember him. Remember Jesus before you become fearful of falling and worry about danger in the streets. Before your hair turns white like an almond tree in bloom, and you drag along without energy like a dying grasshopper. And the caperberry no longer inspires sexual desire. Remember him before you near the grave, your everlasting home, when the mourners will weep at your funeral. Yes, remember your Creator now while you're young, before the silver cord of life snaps and the golden bowl is broken. Listen to how futile these next few words seem. Don't wait until the water jar is smashed at the spring and the pulley is broken at the well. For then the dust will return to the earth and the spirit will return to God who gave it. Don't wait until it's so late in life that you've got nothing left to give him. He uses a couple of interesting analogies in these verses. He talks about the almond tree is white in bloom. Now, it's quite unusual because in our society, an almond tree blooms in the springtime. In Israel, almond trees bloom much later in the year. In fact, they don't even start to bloom, J. Strafford White says, until midwinter. And when they bloom, the petals of an almond tree in Palestine are pink. But as those petals of the blooms get older, as they get bigger, the tips of them start to turn white. And when the almond tree is in full bloom, late in winter, If you look at it from a distance, it looks like that entire tree is white with petals. And this is the analogy that Solomon is using. Don't wait until your hair is white like the almond tree. Much later in the year, not much year left. Don't wait until this stage of life before you start to serve King Jesus. Solomon says, don't wait until you've got no energy left and you're terrified about going out into the streets. You're scared to even fall over because you don't know if you're going to get back up. Don't wait till you get to the stage of life where the caperberry, which was similar to Viagra in Solomon's day, till the caperberry no longer works for you. Think about this. Solomon is an old man. I'm absolutely convinced of it by the time that he's writing this chapter. Solomon's probably writing to a son or to a protege. And he's saying, don't make the mistakes that I made. Solomon met and married many women. In fact, he had 1,000 wives and concubines. And if you know Solomon's story, in 1 Kings chapter 4, these women started to turn Solomon's attention away from God. In fact, they started to worship foreign gods around Solomon. And 1 Kings 4 tells us that Solomon himself even participated in the worship of foreign gods. And I believe that Solomon is now at the end of his life looking back, and he's saying to perhaps his son, oh man, I made some mistakes. Please don't do what I do. Don't fall into the same trap that I fell into. Don't get to this stage of your life and then realize that you've messed up, because now it's almost too late. Solomon is surrounded by 1,000 naked women, but he's got no energy left to do anything with them. And Solomon says, don't become useless at this late stage of life and then start to serve Jesus. Don't get to the point where you're the pulley that's worn out, and so when people go to the well, they don't even use that pulley anymore. Don't get to the point where you're the clay pot that's supposed to hold water, but it's so old and it's got so many cracks in it that it doesn't even hold water anymore, so it's useless. And people just slam it and smash it against a wall. Don't get to the stage of life where you've got nothing left to give because you've waited too long to get right with King Jesus. Don't wait until you're almost at death's door before you get serious with Jesus. And this is the stage of life where you've got some time on your hands, and maybe you've got a little bit of money, but you've got no energy to do anything with. And we want you to see a couple in our church who I think do more to serve Jesus than anybody that I've known at their age. Listen to this video from Ken and Arlene Branch.
I am Ken Branch.
I'm Arlene Branch.
And we have been here for 7 years at Calvary. On our regular weekly stuff, we don't have anything for every day of the week. We do different things. We volunteer in several different areas. We volunteer at Columbus Mission. We do little volunteer work for them. They do have a club that's called Joy Ministry.
Just over you.
Just older years. And we will meet once a month, have an officer meeting. Then we'll have, for the whole group, we'll have a meeting, and we usually have a devotional. We usually have somebody come out and entertain us. And this is every month. And then once a month, we will go somewhere to eat. And then also, with the Columbus Mission Columbus, they have 2 large tents. And I go out a lot of times help set up the tents. I'm called out to set these things up. And then we also volunteer for Hope Givers. We go on a mission trip once a year. We go to Romania. We've been to China on a mission trip. And we try to do this every year. And in this trip, we have built a camp for children. The camp will seat approximately 100 kids now, and probably in the next couple of years it will seat another 120. So we'll get about 200 so kids. We work, work with the Awanas. We deliver Meals on Wheels every week.
It's home delivered meals. It's not
Home delivered meals every week.
We're retired with no family obligations to keep us going.
Right.
We couldn't do this. We weren't working.
And by us being busy, doing things for the Lord, it keeps us in shape. It keeps us in harmony. We are helpers. We love to help people. It doesn't matter who they are. We just enjoy, helping the people, leading the people to Christ where possible.
Help our neighbors out when they need help. For whatever. Yard cleaning, whatever it is. He does. I can't do that.
But it's just, I feel like it's a calling from the Lord. Hey, you're still able, so get off of it and do something for me.
Solomon is telling us tonight, serve Jesus at the early years of life. Serve him during the best years of your life. Serve him at the golden years of your life. Serve him at whatever stage of life that you're in. And it looks different at each stage of life. But I want you to hear this very clearly from me. There is never a point in life where you are too far gone that Jesus can't reach in and turn a man or turn a woman's soul around. I'll give you one final story tonight to try to wrap this up. I got a letter just a few weeks ago. In fact, I've been saving it for tonight to share with you. It came from a member of our church, Norm Blakenbeckler, and he described the change that happened in a good friend of his life when that man moved into our assisted living facilities here on our campus, the Gardens at Calvary. The letter was about a guy by the name of John Norris. And Norm says that John was a much older man when he moved into the Gardens at Calvary. He was there for a few years, and he went through this massive transition. When John showed up at the Gardens, he was a hard man. This is Norm's words. He was a bigot, and he was far from Jesus. And over the course of a couple of years at the Gardens, the Lord started to work in his life and really started to wear down some of his racial prejudices. John got to the point where he was very open, very loving, very gracious, welcoming to everybody on the staff in the Gardens, even those that didn't have the same color of skin as him. John started to loosen up, and Norm Blakenbeckler personally had many years of involvement in John's life. But through the preaching and teaching ministry of our chaplain down there, Chaplain Norman Drummond, John Norris gave his life to Jesus Christ late in life. In fact, just a few months ago. And then a matter of a few weeks later, John Norris died. Norm Blakenbeckler says that those last few weeks of his life, John went through this radical transformation. And in Norm's words, his faith grew like a sprouting seed in those last few weeks of his life. He really started to understand Jesus and what Jesus did for him. And in the last couple of weeks of his life, he got serious about Jesus and his life was turned around. But it was too late. It was all over. There was no chance to serve Jesus, and like I just said, a few weeks later, he was dead. Lisa Dodgen is our director, the lady who runs the Gardens at Calvary, our assisted living facilities. She sent me a letter about John Norris, and the email that she attached to this letter to said these words: Jeff, this is why we do what we do around here, so that we can make an eternal impact on people. Solomon says, do it early on. Start getting right with Jesus early on in life. But let's say you're too late. Let's say you're at the middle years and you're really struggling to get your schedule under control. Do it during the best years of your life. But don't wait until the later years. Don't wait until those golden years to start serving Jesus, because what's going to happen is you don't have the energy anymore that you once had. Yeah, you've got some time on your hands like Ken and Arlene do, but you don't have the energy. So don't wait. Start today to serve King Jesus. And if you are at those golden years, there is never a point where it's too late to turn it all over to Jesus. There just may be a point where there's not a whole lot left once you do. Look, I'm going to pray for us, and I want us to just be really honest with Jesus about the stage of life that you're in. This is between you and Jesus. So I want you to bow your heads for just a second, but I want to pray for you that at whatever stage that you're in, different stages of life in here, we have a lady in the room who's much older. We have some people in the room who are much younger, decades apart from one another. My prayer is that whatever stage of life that you're in right now, you will honor King Jesus with it. So let me pray for you. Father, I lift up to you your people in this room. And I pray that all of us in this room would make the conscious decision to start serving King Jesus right now, if they're not already doing it. That all of us would decide, I'm going to, as quickly as possible, get real serious about honoring Jesus so that I don't get to later on in life and look back with a lot of regrets. Maybe somebody in this room, God, has never surrendered it all to Jesus Christ. Tonight, would you help them do that right here, right now, in the form of a simple prayer? Would you help them surrender it all to Jesus, Holy Spirit, by simply saying, God, I am a sinner, and I deserve hell. But I believe you sent your son to earth to die on the cross so that I don't have to go there. And I believe that he rose 3 days later so that I could be in heaven with him. And so right here, right now, I'm turning it over to him. And not only am I surrendering my soul to him, but I'm surrendering my energy, my time. I'm surrendering my days, the days that I have left. I'm surrendering it all to King Jesus. And Father, I know that if that prayer is serious, that you will honor that and that you will transform them from the inside out. And so, God, would you be honored by the way people respond to your word tonight? I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.